Have you ever had one of those days where everything just feels off? Where a small setback feels like the end of the world, or a compliment just doesn't quite land because you instantly dismiss it? We all experience moments of negative thinking, but sometimes these thoughts aren't just passing moods, they're deeply ingrained patterns, almost like default settings in our minds. Welcome! Today, we're going to talk about something incredibly powerful in shaping our reality: cognitive distortions. These aren't just bad thoughts. They are systematic, often irrational, ways our minds can trick us into perceiving things inaccurately, usually in a negative light. Think of them as the brain's subtle editing errors, constantly influencing how we feel, what we do, and how we interact with the world around us. The idea of cognitive distortions was first introduced by the pioneering psychiatrist Aaron T. Beck in the 1960s. He noticed these unhelpful thinking styles were central to many mental health challenges, particularly depression, and they became a cornerstone of what we now know as cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Understanding them is like getting a user manual for your own mind. It allows you to identify when your thoughts might be steering you off course. And the good news? Once you can spot them, you can begin to challenge them. While there are many different types, some are far more common than others. Today, we're going to explore 10 of the most prevalent cognitive distortions. Our goal isn't to judge these thoughts, but simply to recognize them so we can gain a clearer perspective and foster more balanced, helpful ways of thinking. Let's dive into these common mental shortcuts and see if any of them resonate with your own experiences. 1. All or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. First up is all or nothing thinking, also known as black and white thinking. This is when you view situations in extreme, absolute terms. There's no middle ground, no shades of gray. You're either a complete success or a total failure. For example, if you're on a healthy eating plan and you eat one cookie, you might instantly think, well, that's it. I've completely blown my diet. I might as well eat the whole box. This kind of thinking prevents us from seeing progress or recognizing the nuance in our efforts. To challenge this, ask yourself, is there a middle ground here? Are there other possibilities I'm not considering? 2. Overgeneralization. Next, we have overgeneralization. This is when you draw a sweeping negative conclusion based on a single negative event, expecting it to apply universally, forever. Imagine you have one bad job interview. An overgeneralization would be, I always mess up interviews, I'll never get a job. A single negative experience becomes a never-ending pattern. When you catch yourself overgeneralizing, try to ask, is this truly always the case? Is this one event proof of a permanent pattern, or just one moment in time? 3. Mental filter, negative filtering. Our third distortion is the mental filter. This is like wearing glasses that only allow you to see the negative. You focus solely on negative details and ignore all positive aspects of a situation. Think of a project you've worked hard on that receives 9 positive comments and 1 minor criticism. If you have a mental filter, you'll dwell endlessly on that one criticism, completely disregarding the overwhelming praise. It's like picking out a single dark thread from a beautiful tapestry and deciding the whole thing is ruined. To counter this, consciously try to list the positives. What went well? What did I achieve? 4. Discounting the positive. Closely related is discounting the positive. Here, you actively dismiss positive experiences, achievements, or compliments as insignificant or accidental. If someone compliments your work, you might think, oh, they're just being nice, or it was pure luck. You take the positive and twist it into something negative, or minimize its value. This is a common way we prevent ourselves from feeling good about our accomplishments. When you receive a compliment or achieve something, try simply saying thank you and allowing yourself to acknowledge it without adding a qualifier. 5. Jumping to conclusions. Our fifth distortion is jumping to conclusions, which actually has 2 common forms. Mind reading. This is when you assume you know what others are thinking, usually negatively, without any evidence. For example, your friend doesn't text back right away, and you immediately think, they're mad at me, or they don't like me anymore. Fortune telling. This is predicting negative future outcomes without any basis. I'm going to fail this presentation, or this party will be boring, before you've even given it a chance. For both, the key is to question the evidence. What actual proof do I have for this thought? Am I really a mind reader or a fortune teller? 6. Magnification, catastrophizing, and minimization. Number 6 is magnification and minimization. This is about blowing negative events out of proportion, also known as catastrophizing, while downplaying positive ones. Catastrophizing is turning a small problem into a huge disaster. I missed one deadline. I'm going to get fired, lose my house, and end up homeless. Minimization, as we briefly touched on, is ignoring the significance of your successes or strengths. It's an unfair lens that distorts reality. Ask yourself, is this really as bad as I'm making it out to be? What's the realistic worst-case scenario, and what's the most likely scenario? 7. Emotional reasoning. 7th on our list is emotional reasoning. This is when you believe your feelings are objective facts. I feel stupid, therefore I must be stupid. I feel anxious, so this situation must be dangerous. Our emotions are powerful, but they aren't always accurate indicators of reality. Feeling something doesn't make it true. This distortion can be particularly tricky because feelings can feel so real and compelling. When you notice emotional reasoning, try to separate the feeling from the fact. I feel X, but what are the objective facts of the situation? 8. Should, must, and ought statements. Our 8th distortion involves should, must, and ought statements. These are rigid, unrealistic rules you hold for yourself and others, leading to guilt, frustration, or anger when they're not met. Should always be perfect. They must understand me. When these self-imposed rules aren't followed, which they often aren't, because life is messy, you end up feeling guilty or you become angry at others for not living up to your expectations. Try rephrasing these statements with more flexible language, like, I could try to, or it would be helpful if. 9. Labeling and mislabeling. Number 9 is labeling and mislabeling. This is when you attach a global negative label to yourself or others based on a single incident or perceived flaw. Instead of saying, I made a mistake, you might think, I'm a total idiot. Or instead of, they did something annoying, you think, they're a terrible person. Labels are reductive and prevent us from seeing the complexity of human behavior and our own potential for change. Focus on the behavior, not the person. What specific action occurred, rather than who is this person because of that action? 9. Personalization and blame.
Finally, our 10th distortion is personalization and blame. This involves taking excessive responsibility for negative events not entirely under your control, or conversely, blaming others entirely for things you might have some part in. If a group project fails, you might think, it's all my fault, even if others contributed. Or you might entirely blame external circumstances for your own choices. This distortion often stems from a skewed sense of control over situations. Consider the full picture. What was truly within my control and what wasn't? What role did others or external factors play? So there you have them, 10 of the most common cognitive distortions that subtly and sometimes not so subtly shape our perception of reality. As you listened, perhaps some of these sounded remarkably familiar, and that's perfectly normal. We all fall into these thinking traps from time to time. The key takeaway here isn't to beat yourself up for having these thoughts. It's simply to become aware of them. Think of it like learning to spot different kinds of clouds in the sky. Once you can identify them, you can better understand the weather patterns of your own mind. Recognizing these distortions is the first crucial step in challenging them. This process, often explored in depth through therapies like CBT with the help of mental health professionals like psychologists and therapists, empowers you to rewrite those unhelpful scripts your mind might be playing on repeat. It's a journey towards more balanced, realistic, and ultimately more helpful thinking. Remember, thoughts are not facts, they are interpretations. By learning to question these ingrained patterns, we can develop greater emotional resilience, improve our relationships, and foster a much healthier outlook on ourselves and the world. Keep practicing, keep observing your thoughts without judgment, and know that with awareness and gentle effort, you can truly transform your inner landscape.